Well, it has been a while, actually. I know it may not seem that way from releases, but the fact that we are all here together, it has been a long time. So, welcome back to The Craft. Today we have Alexander Chinnici. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. This actually, before we begin, this is our first episode back with brand new producers, where Wanmi and I don't have to do these things ourselves. So we have Blake and Carissa at Greencraft Media. So shout out to them.
Yeah, thank you guys for helping us do this thing. And thank you, Alex, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I'm happy to be on the first one. That's exciting. Very cool.
The first one that looks professional.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Nice little upgrade.
Absolutely. So, Alex, you and I know a lot of the same people, but there may be folks out there that don't know your full repertoire and your full IMDb. So can you give us a little background?
Yeah, sure. I'm a cinematographer who I started in New York. That's where I'm from. And I live in Los Angeles now. And I went to School of Visual Arts and studied cinematography there. I've been running around with the camera in my hand since I was, a kid. Been shooting the whole time. It feels like I've been doing this my whole life, basically. And shoot a lot of movies and commercials. I have this movie Descendant coming out today, and London Calling coming out in a few weeks. And I don't know. I'm a cinematographer. That's me. That's what I do. It's my whole fucking life.
And that's
Did you start out shooting, or did you start a different path?
No. I started out. I was really lucky in that group of friends in high school all started making movies together. I gravitated towards the camera. We all went to film school together, SVA in New York. So I was just automatically shooting for people. I didn't know what the hell cinematography was, but I was just the guy who had the camera, and then that developed through film school. All the other students started to realize, I started to realize, it just sort of happened in that way. And so then when I graduated school, I had a pretty decent reel, for that time, right, and that level of experience. And so then, and I was lucky too that I graduated 2009, so there's the whole YouTube boom and 5D and Red comes out and all that kind of stuff. So sort of, now younger DPs, it's crazy, but for that time it was definitely able to kind of take advantage. And I mean, truthfully, also to be super transparent, just committed to that and was super broke in New York, being I'm a cinematographer at a young age and just trying to get by that way. But that commitment got me to a point where I started shooting features and all sorts of things and making a lot of sacrifices, but building up that level of work. And that sort of, that path was hard, but I just kept my head down and kept doing it. And I operated and gaffed a little bit in my 20s for friends and for whatever else, but I kind of made a point at probably 24 probably, where I was I'm going to just DP, I'm going to put my head down. It means I have to eat off the McDonald's dollar menu and jump the subway turnstiles sometimes, but I'm just going to put my head down and just do this. And it worked out in that way,
Alex, I watched 5 of your movies in the last 48 hours, and a couple of and trailers and all your commercials and all that thing. The first thing that hits me when I see your movies is this guy loves color. Your movies are very colorful.
It's true.
And at the beginning, I didn't know. I saw them in order, so I saw Nighthawks first, and it makes sense with the story. But then you keep watching movies, even the VHS series, and the last one the last one it's been released. It's Noah's Ark, and you like color. Where is that coming from?
Oh, I don't know. I think it probably, that's so funny and very, very, very accurate. Funny enough, Descendant is probably the most natural, even though there's a ton of color in Descendant, but it's less extreme.
It feels like it has a lot of color, but kind of one color, not as.
Yeah, it's kind of two actually. Descendant is it's funny. It's really simple. It's green is alien and scary, and then warm is like happy home wife, like protective, and then there's like a neutral blue kind of or I'd just say natural in the middle. But yeah, I love color for sure because I think I just love expressionism. I think we're really grateful to do this for a living and to do this for a job. So I kind of always feel like I want to push things because maybe if the opposite is sort of naturalism and realism, I think, in completely honestly, like I get a little bored, and I also think it's just sort of you're leaving certain things on the floor. Also, us as cinematographers, we all talk about like all the specific things that we do that we hope that the audience, because that's what it's all about, right? Feel and react to. So I think you need to go a little further because a lot of the conversations we have, I don't know that gets to them necessarily. So that's also just sort of a philosophical thing. I also think I just enjoy it. It's so I like making pretty things. I think it's fun and enjoyable. I love color in the real world, and you can push it. I have stuff I could pull up and be like, we went too far here, whatever. So it's like you can go extreme, and I think that's been a journey of mine is trying to navigate that where I like to push things. When I was younger, I was drawn to like Vittorio Storaro and that kind of stuff where. I just liked extreme color. I think it says a lot. I think it gets across to the audience really well. And I just really enjoyed playing with it. Like I love hard light, I love backlight, I love shadows, I love strong color, I like bold lenses, kind of, bigger moves in a way. And now I'm trying to navigate how to take some of those and maybe make them a little more subtle and navigate that. And actually Descendant for me is like, I feel that I've gotten to another place now in terms of riding that line in a certain way.
Funny that you mentioned Storaro because yesterday I was thinking I have to ask Alex if he likes Dick Tracy and he likes all the Storaro movies about flamenco and that they're full of color. And watching your movies, it reminded me, okay, he must like Storaro.
Yeah. When I was in school, when I was at SVA, a teacher of mine, Igor Sanara, who's a Croatian, great cinematographer, he used to tease me and call me, I think really because of the Italian last name, he was like, Storaro. And on Noah's Ark, you mentioned that, there was a really nice moment on that where one of the writers / EPs on set I was lighting something and I had all this like orange backlight coming in through these windows, and one of the guys came up to me and he's like, "You're Italian, right?" And I was like, "I'm third generation. I'm from New York." Like, but sure, sure. And he was like, "Yeah, your lighting is very Italian." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know. This all tastes
what
right."
Does that
like,
mean?
It's all like,
What does it mean?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I think he meant like lush and kind of vibrant and extreme. That's like the food too, right? The food is sort of it's intense in a way. It's not dull. So yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it. I think it's fun, and I think a lot of the time we leave certain things on the table for the taking, and I like to, as a narrative cinematographer, really sort of push those, and the toolbox, like try to get as many tools as possible. I think it's really fun.
Has that always been a tendency in your MO, or was there a moment that you can pinpoint when you were starting out where you're like, listen, done playing it safe, I need to say this moment right here, I'm going to try this?
That's a great question. I go far back enough, I have no idea. I mean, I can even kind of remember in high school and going into film school and not even knowing what lighting is at all, right? Like just having no concept of that in those sort of early years of having some realizations in film school, being like identifying certain things. But no, I mean, my first feature, No Way to Live, that I shot in, I think, 2012, it came out in 2014. I could be off by a little bit there. It's a little low budget movie, but it was a noir. And the directors on that are really bold and great. They're good friends of mine from film school, Nick Chacwin and David Guglielmo. And we just like went balls to the wall in that movie it was a $120,000 movie. So, no, I guess it was kind of always there. I don't know. I've always been taken by, like, I like imagery that burns into one's mind, if you will, in the sense that like you close your eyes and you can see it. I think that's really important, and that feels like something that's kind of always been there. In terms of boldness, I've found over and over again that I think you can go further than you think. Certainly overstepped for sure. I'm sure I will overstep in the future, but there's been times where I've looked back on something and gone, I could have went further there. If you start to have any of that insecurity and pull back and go like, I don't know. I think confidence is important. I think an audience can feel that too. They feel like they're in good hands. They feel like your intention is clear. I went and saw like a late showing of Weapons last night, the new Zach Cregger film shot by Larkin Sepul, who I think is great. So confident, so just like knew exactly what it wanted, and it was beautifully made. It was so well executed. So no, I think boldness is important. I think you should often go further than you think that you should. Because again, does that translate to the thing as it's playing? It's one thing, now we all look at stills and that's how we like talk about stuff, and it's on Instagram, it's on your phone, and you're like, who's my lens? Like it has to experience, that has to play out for you, like as you're watching it as an audience member. So I don't know, I lean on like turn the volume up a little bit, if that makes sense. But other people are the opposite, and that's what's cool about this,
Exactly.
like they'd be like, I want it to be way more subtle, and I think some of my favorite movies are like that. But I'm not. I've learned over the years as I've gotten older, like own who you are, and evolve and change and listen to that, but ultimately like own it and do that,
But using color in that extreme way that you use it, like, is there a camera that you like better than the other? Because when you push the sensors in any direction, up, down, or
Sure.
Hyper saturation, whatever, it has to be a sensor that you like better than the other. What's your favorite?
To be clear, before I get into some specifics there, I don't own any cameras. I never have, and I whatchamacallit, I right now in the past, I don't know, it feels like 5-ish years, I've basically, depending on the job, swapped between like Alexa Mini, Mini LF, Sony Venice 1, 2, and more recently, the past couple of years, like Alexa 35. So I mainly use those cameras. I haven't used a Red in a long time. I did a lot of that when I was younger. And I haven't really played too much with some of the more like prosumer, smaller, cameras. Although they're great, the whole FX3 talk and the DJI and all that stuff, like it's awesome. But yeah, I've tested. So I did a really extensive test during the strikes, and did a whole like LUT building thing and all this stuff that actually impacted these two movies really heavily. And I would say if I was stuck on an island and I had to pick, I would pick the Alexa 35 because I like a large container. I like as much as possible on the light and color front, more so than like the resolution one. However, I love the Venice 2. I've used it a ton. I have a movie that I think is gonna shoot in like January that's perfect for the Venice 2. And I'm going to choose that over the 35. Descendant and London Calling are both Alexa 35. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I prefer that sort of large container of color depth and dynamic range. Although, of course, there are pros and cons. Like my extremely extensive tests sort of showed where the 35 sung and where the Venice 2 sung, and there's pros and cons and how you utilize it, how you manipulate it, whatever else. In terms of color, I definitely noticed a strength in the 35 for sure. However, with all that said, man, I could go on a whole thing about pipeline and the color house that you're at and your colorist. I've unfortunately had a lot of, I think because I push things, but I also have had a lot of movies where people are forced on, houses are forced on. So I could choose that camera and say, I like it like this. I could choose my LUT and design it and say it's like this and have my on-set lighting that's like that. And then it all gets ruined at the end. I've had that happen many times. So the camera's one choice, but man, oh man, that series of events and what goes down to that last part, I don't think the camera's the end all be all in that way at all. It should be, but it's not. That's not the reality in the real world.
But that's more in commercials, I assume, right, than a movie.
No.
Really?
No, I've had movies. I've shot 9 films, and I'd say I'm happy with the color on 2, in all honesty. It's all tax incentive stuff. It's all, rebates and this post-house tied financially. Stuff nobody wants to talk about. Maybe I should be careful talking about on here. I'm not going to name any names. That I'll be careful about. I won't name any projects or anything, but the truth is it's been a large struggle and one that I continue to fight on and have gotten more little more intense on in terms of questions I ask at the beginning of projects, and sometimes even putting my foot down a little bit, sort of in a way of like, well, if you want me, then we need to do these things, because I've worked years on projects and killed myself only to be upset with that result in the end. So I mention it all because we could talk about the camera, but boy, does that not matter if that other part doesn't go well, you know?
100%.
And actually, it depends a lot. I mean, we've talked with people here that are very tech-oriented or very camera-driven, stuff like that, and some others, they don't care. I don't care much about the cameras, honestly. I care more about the lens. And
yeah, I care more. I agree. For me, it's a logistic choice as well. Like, what is it? It kind of like, again, that Venice 2 movie I mentioned, and I'm doing a commercial next week on the Venice 2, and it's kind of almost more a logistic choice in a way, where it's like it does these specific things that I need it to do, so therefore it fits for that. But there's a politics around cameras as well. Like, you convince someone. I remember when the Venice first came out, the Venice 1, I had a few projects where producers, some people turned to me, they're like, a Sony? Whatever that means, you know what I mean? Like, they don't know what that means, but in their mind, that now the Venice has a reputation, right? But so it's kind of, I remember when the Reds were first around, and it was everyone was just like resolution. Then a bunch of producers got burned by it because it had some reliability issues, and then that turned into, I want nothing to do with the Red anymore, which was kind of unfair in some ways, because again, I don't really use those cameras, but they've gotten 10 times better. So there's these, I think that also can become a part of camera choice sometimes, meaning, if I convinced a studio or I convinced a producer to work with a certain one, a new one, a Blackmagic or something like that, I'm putting myself on the line a little bit in a way of sort of being like, hey, use this thing, and they go like, really? I don't know. And then now, what if it breaks one day? But I've had Aries break, like, and I think they're the most reliable, robust thing. Like, it can happen on anything, So it's more than just that creative choice. I think that's a political choice. It's a logistic choice. It's a pricing thing. It's like, there's so many factors to take into account. I'm not the type of cinematographer where I like choose the one reason. I lie in bed at night and there's 40 reasons why, and trying to just weave all of that and make the right choice holistically.
I feel like after the creator, where Oren Sofel shot the entire movie with the FX3.
Oren's a good friend.
So I mean, he kind of finished the conversation about what camera it has to be. It's professional or it's not. The professional camera is the one that delivers the result, and the result on the...
That's someone in professional hands.
Exactly. You got a professional DP, you got a great pipeline, you got a great colorist. The outcome is amazing. It's brilliant. So that's the end of the conversation. If I shot recently with a movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and I shot 20 minutes of the movie with the FX3 too, because it was the right tool to use it.
Sure.
And
it's a great little camera.
And no one blinked an eye. So no one said anything. So I think that Oren facilitated us that in a way that, okay, you can show the creator. So
Yeah, I hope though, and I think it has, but that conversation was less. And not saying that you're saying this, but I talked about this with Oren a lot. Is that it's less about the FX3 and it's more about the choice being kind of free in a sense, right? Where it's like, I mean, 28 years later with the iPhone and all that, and like it's yeah, I do think it is opening up in certain ways. It just depends though too, because I think there's slippery slopes with all of it, right? Because I've had some producers kind of then go towards in a little bit in the direction of like, well, the camera doesn't matter, and it's like, well, of course it matters.
It does
but
matter.
it's just yeah, it's sort of it all always comes back to the why. Why are we making the choice? Why are we doing the thing? I do think we are obviously in an extremely exciting time. Aspect ratios have opened up formats and squeezes and all sorts of like we're in such a I don't know, in film's rocking and rolling in all sorts of great ways. It's like we're in a very, very, very exciting time too. If I bring it back to that, like that expressionism, like how do you want your movie to feel and get across to the audience? Our options are like, it's incredible what we can do now. The LED lighting is nuts. It's like we're very fortunate,
Completely agree. Speaking of things that are not camera centric that lead to the end result, how involved going into some of these features, maybe speak for the most recent ones, how involved with the production designer and wardrobe and, speaking through palette, how deep do you get into that in prep?
Extremely. I'm very big on like if I identify that stuff is missing, I'll call meetings and stuff like on London Calling. I kind of there wasn't anything on we had 5 or 6 weeks of prep on that, and like there was nothing on the board the prep weeks about one, there was no meetings for like all the HODs to get together, and two, there were no we never like had any like color palette or like overall aesthetic meetings. Everyone was just sort of individually like doing their thing and meeting with the director or whatever. And the director and I are really close. We've done several projects together, and so I just went up to, I forget who, I think the first AD or producer or whatever, and was like, can we just have a weekly Monday meeting where we all get together and we just jam, tell each other what we're doing, converse, and I sort of led the charge on that in the way of being, sort of, I had all I do a lot of shot deck stuff these days, as a lot of people do, sort of putting, Descendant, we did that big time, because Peter on Descendant is a first-time director, so I was like, get a shot deck account and just go to town, and he did a really good job of like, per scene, per sequence, per location, just putting stuff in, and then my job was to kind of, it was too much at first, and be like, okay, these images are almost contradicting one another. Let's whittle this down to over here. But oh yeah, I mean, it's massive. Everybody talks about, I think cinematography almost sometimes gets too much credit in terms of like, but in some ways the thing is that I am trying to facilitate that all of those things are communicating. And also just sometimes things are a pain in the ass where like you get there and maybe you missed something or you made an assumption or someone didn't communicate something to you, and you arrive and it's a black wall and a black costume, and you're like, oh no, like, or you know what I mean? Like you're trying to identify those little. I'm also just trying to look out for those oh shit moments of something that pops up where you're like, shit, I wish I knew that was going to be like that, or I could have convinced them in some way. And again, when my stuff is more contrasty, my stuff is pretty colorful. So when you're, I think, pushing things to the extreme, it becomes even more important. And a cohesive aesthetic is the job, right? Like that's a massive, massive part of the job. Of course, it really comes down to the director first and foremost, but they also have so much going on. So I try to be their right-hand person and look out for those things, and maybe try to point out some things I may see that are a problem further down the road, because on set I'm very time conscious. I'm very like on it, and so in prep I'm trying to snuff those out so that they don't screw us on the day, really, But I get on the same page with the director as early as possible, so that those conversations you're talking about, and it's also really fun when things come up where a different wonderful creative, a costume designer or someone says something to you where you're like, oh shit, I never fucking thought about that, you know, like that's like the best stuff, you know, and then it can divert, because one of the coolest things about making a movie, I think, is you plan and you have all these ideas, and then the first few days of filming, the movie like kind of introduces itself to you. It's sort of like, hello, this is me.
Yep.
You know, like it like arrives, and being open to that and aware and sort of riding that wave, I think, is like one of the coolest parts. But you got to be close with your HODs on that, everybody else, because we all affect one another. You know, you walk into a set over a weekend that they're building and like the wallpaper's up, and you're like, oh no, you know, like, and then you don't want to be that guy that's like, we got to rip this stuff down and read it, like, you know, and then everybody's pissed, and like you're just trying to avoid that stuff, you know.
So, Alex, except for the VHS movies that are like a whole universe on their own,
Yeah.
You seem to have a preference for the 240 or the scope framing in your movies.
Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can tell if you use anamorphic lenses or spherical lenses on the movies I watch, at least. What's your preference on that end?
I do a lot of both. Again, it kind of goes back to like whatever's right for the project. I am definitely like a agnostic in some ways, and I kind of consider myself like a little bit of a chameleon in a way that like I try to change it up on every project. I think consistencies are certain taste things and colors and everything you're saying, but I definitely like. I think like a lot of cinematographers had like a real big moment in romance and like deep relationship with anamorphic, because once I kind of discovered it and like fell absolutely in love and head over heels and was like so eager to shoot anamorphic through my 20s, and finally like I mean, it was all these like, I have to shoot a feature anamorphic, you know, like that was like a big thing for me. And now that I've done it a lot,
I'm still there, by the way.
Yeah, no,
in your
you're
not in your 20s, Alex. What you saying?
in my soul, I am.
Yeah. Well, it kind of it's a really, I think it's an important thing to go through, because you pass through it and you sort of, you know, it's just a want and a need, because it's so exciting, and however you want to define that cinema, you know, big word in a way, it is sort of all that. But I still love it. I think it screams movie, you know, and I think it taps into the kid in me, who I'm definitely like speaking to a lot of the time when it comes to these aesthetic choices, and sort of that because again, my whole thing is I want to be that person in the audience and in the theater, sort of looking up and being, you know, really sort of transported and excited, and all those feelings. That's the whole point of this, in my opinion. And so anamorphic, I think, definitely like brings us there, and I love that. And it's so, you know, you frame it up and you're just like, fuck, that's a fucking movie, and that's really fun and exciting. However, it's not always appropriate at all. You know, again, you know, Noah's Ark was spherical, Descendant was spherical, London Calling was anamorphic. I have 2 upcoming movies that, well, we'll see if they shoot, but, you know, one's anamorphic, one's spherical. It's like each project's different. But yeah, man, anamorphic's just like so fun. It can also be a pain in the ass, you know, like it can be tough. But I think you overcome some of those challenges to achieve a really exciting result. You know,
What make you?
When you're
Oh, sorry, Alex.
Go ahead.
What makes you say one movie is anamorphic, the other one is not? Assuming that you're gonna frame them 240 anyways. What's your gap?
And I also look, I love that aspect ratio. Of course, again, it's sort of it goes back to like, it's a bold shape. I mean, it isn't a bold shape because so many movies are shot that way, but I mean in the sense that, of course, compared to something, you know, I think when you're sort of in a more basic rectangle versus something that starts to get really widescreen or really tall, like a 4x3 or something, which one of the VHS movies I shot 4x3, and the director and I had so much fun with that, and we kept talking about it. We were like, oh man, 4x3 is so fun. I've not shot a feature 4x3, but I'd love to one day, because anything that's sort of pushing it a little bit, I think is exciting. At the same time, I've done a few projects 2-to-1. One of these upcoming movies is probably going to be 2-to-1, and that's a great aspect ratio too, because I think a big thing for aspect ratio for me, outside of spherical and anamorphic, because those things can be independent, of course, is that I sort of just think about shapes, and in the sense that I was just doing a project recently where we had a lot of horizon stuff. We had a lot of left to right shapes, but tall was also important. And so that became this debate of I want to see ceilings, I want to see head to toe, but I also really want to show that that negative space and that gap left to right. So I find that to be a debate with directors. I try to really get their minds in the head space of what's more important to us. Is it head to toe? Is it ceilings? Is it sky? Is it vertical? Is it buildings? I think a lot about shapes. Almost like squint your eyes, make things like a silhouette and just lines. Like that's how I think of compositions in a sense. Like the simplicity of it. What's the right, the thing that's going to get to you right away, versus something that's more scope and this sort of, you're going to start to lose those ceilings. You're going to start to have difficulty getting those full body shots in a way. So it's always a debate, and like anything, you just sort of have to give up certain things to get other things, right? I think that's always the balancing act, is like priorities is a word I use a lot, like what's more important. Whereas anamorphic and spherical, for me, spherical is, look, it's how our eyes see. It's what we see with video, with documentary, with our iPhones, with the most pretty much all photographs that we see. So spherical is going to be more normal. It's going to be more, and I'm being a little black and white here, but it's realistic. It sits in a place of like normalcy and groundedness in my mind. Whereas anamorphic is going to immediately kind of push things a little off kilter. Things are going to feel a little otherworldly. They're going to feel a little elevated. They're going to feel, again, go back to that cinematic word and whatever. So I often bring that up with the director, that I'm sort of like, what's the first impression we want to make on the audience? What's that first immediate thing that will be said to them? Like, this is where you are. Come on this journey with us in this way. And for me, spherical is going to kind of give you a little bit more of an immediate sort of, again, grounded realism, whereas anamorphic is going to give us something that's a little off. As an example, like London Calling, it takes place in like a hitman criminal world, but like things are elevated and frankly kind of ridiculous in like a silly, fun way. So anamorphic was important in that way of sort of winking to the audience, like, we're in movie land, we're having fun here. Whereas Descendant is a very expressionistic film, but the whole point of the film is this happening or is this not happening? Is this guy losing his mind, or is this all actually really happening to him? So that foundation of realism was important, so that, because the moment we went too far, in my opinion, the audience would have went, this is all a dream, or this is all in his head, or this is all, we had to make you go like, but this feels real, and that was important. And I think spherical does that, even though we went pretty extreme with our spherical lenses. So that's a very fine line, because some spherical lenses can be really sharp, some can be really wacky. So anyway, sorry, long answer, but I could talk about this shit for days.
It's a great answer, by the way.
I was going to throw one caveat. You're talking about anamorphic. I was like, unless you're talking about master anamorphics, then you might as well.
1,000%. Which, trust me, it went into my brain. I've shot a short on masters. I've shot a feature on masters. Weapons, I'm 99% sure someone hit me up and tell me I'm wrong. But Larkin, used them on wolves, and just watching the movie in theaters last night, I was like, I think these are masters. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I see the vertical elliptical bokeh, so my brain immediately goes there. That's what I'm saying, though. Is it like, what does the audience recognize and what do they not? That's a whole other debate. I see too much. I see behind the curtain in an extreme way. Like, my eyes are darting all over the place, and I know you guys too. It's like we see things in a way that normal audiences don't see.
It's tough to step back. Yeah,
I will argue.
It's impossible.
I will argue that the spherical lenses have way more close focus than the anamorphics.
Of course.
When you push the camera towards the characters, you start going into an unrealistic world too. So,
sure.
Again, what you said. I mean, every movie needs what it needs, but it's really difficult.
Again, just go all the way and go the Zelmus.
The what?
Remember? Close focus. The Zelmu's anamorphics.
Oh, yeah.
those
I shot
Ukrainian
a
things?
movie. I shot a movie on the Zelmus.
Get it up
Yeah,
in
I know
there,
that.
man.
Yeah, there. No, that's the thing. That's part of this conversation is that things are changing.
Yeah.
Like the close focus, of course, on spherical is better. But yeah, I shot a movie on the Zelmus. The close focus is very good on those. We were in a small house. I didn't have to use diopters that much. The T series has that 60. That's great. The London Calling. I mean. Years ago, I would have said I would have never shot a movie that wasn't 2x squeeze. I strongly prefer 2x squeeze. To me, that's like real anamorphic. I always, the 1.25, 1.3 just never did it for me. But London Calling is the Ultra Panatar 2s, which are 1.3, but they have the rear iris in the back, like the Hawk 65s, where the bokeh does have like the 2x bokeh, right? But that was appropriate because that was right for the director. Like 2x was too much for him, in a sense. I bring that up because the close focus is very good on those lenses. It was never a problem on set. It never came up, or if I shoot Lomo round fronts or C series or something, close focus is a huge pain in the ass. Frankly, directors don't really want to deal with it. Like it's a thing that goes back to that choice. Like, first of all, you're communicating that very clearly to them so that they know what they're getting themselves into. But also, do they have enough production experience where they actually know what that means? Like are you guiding them in that way that is, is your ego sort of over this lens that you want, and sort of like, I want it to be all pretty versus the reality. Like we work in production. It's these things are very, very real. So I take that into consideration as well, personally, because I also don't want to be sitting there, with a director who's sitting there going like, I fucking hate this. Like, why'd you do this to us? And I'm sitting there getting all this pressure because we're diopter, like I don't want to be in that position.
You mean I can't go from a wide to a close-up push in the same shot? What are you talking about?
Yeah. If you didn't make that clear to them, you didn't test with them, or they don't look. There's some directors out there that know, like Paul Thomas Anderson. They say is like brilliant with lenses. Like he just knows. Robert Elswit has this great quote where he said, like Paul knows enough that he's dangerous, which I love that line. It's like, some people are really smart with it. A lot of directors are not. They really don't know lenses that well. So it's our job to help guide them. And are we setting them up for success? Or do they go, I don't care. It's so beautiful. I want it. Then like, cool, great. Like, you do what you got to do. But I do think that that's an important part of the job in a way,
I did test last couple of weeks ago some 1.5 anamorphics from Ancient Optics at Keslow, and they were
cool,
amazingly gorgeous and very, very close focus.
Is that the Stratiras or whatever?
I'm trying to.
Are they big and silver?
Yes, those lenses.
Yeah. Old Fast Glass made them with Ancient Optics and everything.
Very fast.
They're gorgeous.
Very beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And it made me reconcile a little bit with the anamorphic because I love the anamorphic. I love the idea of the anamorphic. But in the last 5-6 years, I avoided because of that, because I want to be able to go from a wide shot to here. And the anamorphic doesn't give me that possibility.
Totally.
And 15 days ago, I was at Keslow, and they showed me those lenses. I was like, oh, I may need to rethink about this because they're really pretty. And
yeah, they're beautiful. I love the orange purple flare and all that. They have like kind of all the beauty of the anamorphics and almost none of the flaws of the anamorphic, in my opinion. Yeah, which is happening more. It's happening more and more. Again, Zelmus did it. The some of the T series has as well. It's still a thing, of course, but it is becoming rapidly less of a thing. And I think it's great.
We just
have more choices.
I just shot a couple projects on those Mercury anamorphics, the Atlas, those 1.5s as well. Good close focus. And we one of the projects is meant to be shown, so there's a broadcast component, but then also a scoreboard component at a major university football stadium. And some of the content there's like faces, but then there's also architecture. And the Mercury, that was a big, again, to your issue earlier, like we want to show scope for the actual display format, but then we have to capture tall buildings. What do? They just came out with a 27 millimeter for the Mercuries, which is bonkers. absolutely bonkers. So it's like, yeah, you get the height, but then you have all this negative space, so you gotta, dress that appropriately. But that's a crazy lens. 27.
Yeah, anamorphic. When you get into like, I remember the Hawk V Light 28. I shot some stuff on, and yeah, when you're around that focal length, it's pretty wild on a 2x. The barrel distortion is really intense, and again, that triggers. I've noticed barrel distortion is one of the most triggering things for directors. A lot of them don't like it. That's also why I used, like, again, London Calling Ultra Panatar 2s, because they're 1.3. They, for me as a 2x guy, I got my bokeh, but the director did not like. But we did a bunch of tests, and he was like, it's funny. He just was like, I don't like what's happening there, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, that's anamorphic, dude. Like, we want to shoot anamorphic. Like, that's coming with it. And then when I slapped the Ultra Panatar 2s on and saw that the lines were more straight and they didn't have that barrel distortion, he was like, that looks great. And it was like, okay, cool. We've now merged and found like a middle ground where if it didn't have that rear with the bokeh, I think I would have been pretty turned off, because I want that. Like, that to me is one of the most telling things with anamorphic, that the bokeh does that vertical shape. So anyway, yeah, that's what's cool. It's like there's so many different. We are now in a position where we can sort of have both in a way,
Just to be precise, yes, the lenses I was talking about are the Stateras from Ancient Optics.
Yeah.
So going to the opposite side of this is your 3 VHS movies, where formats are all over the place, especially on Beyond. There's like all kinds of formats. I'm assuming all kinds of lenses. Yesterday, I couldn't tell if you shot with a good camera and fake it, or you shoot with real VHS cameras. How you did that?
Yeah. Well, and also to be clear too, I want to say with the VHS movies that with each one that I've shot, which I shot a segment in 99, 85, and beyond, which were 3 years in a row. I only did one segment per. So sometimes I say that just to say, because I've had people think that I shot the whole movie and all the segments, and I'm like, no. I don't want to take credit for anybody else's work, right? But yeah, no. Each one, this is very me too. I like wanted to fully commit all the way to go like accurate, if you will. So, in 99, I did Suicide Bid, and we used a little Sony camcorder on that, just a real camcorder. But we went out to a recorder, and then VHS 85, which is definitely the one that I'm kind of most happy with. It was Total Copy, which is the wraparound, and I'm most happy with it because we went the most extreme, and on that we utilized an old tube camera from 1984 we just did that all in camera for real, which was insane. The burn-in that you get, it was so, if anybody's worked with them, it's so stressful and difficult, but awesome. It's like 4 stops of dynamic range. It's like, it's just like nuts.
I worked with those,
but it's cool.
I worked with those in 1994, like when you had to deliver something that it was good. Yeah.
No, totally. Well, so the guy that got me the cameras is a buddy of mine, Charles Papper, who's a wonderful, Steadicam operator, cinematographer, director. Charles is a good friend of mine. He came up with those cameras, so he brought them back to life in a way, and got recorders and monitors, and like got the whole thing, Teradek out, like, so that we could operate in like a normal modern way. And then we did a whole actual VHS transfer, and then bought a bunch of old VHSs. And, because we're recording, basically, we essentially were like re-recording them in a way, and basically fucking with the actual VHS tape going through, and like flicking it and unscrewing things so the pressure was adjusting, and so all those in-camera like scratches and adjustments and everything they're all in camera and real, and we were layering things on top of each other, so it was so much fun. That was like, it felt like a fine art project almost in a way, frankly. And found ways to use some extreme color in that as well, which was interesting because the color range on those is like nothing. And also what you see with your eyes is not what you get on camera at all. Also, each camera body is different too. You pop one up and it's like super green, and then one is super cyan. Like, all that kind of stuff. And then I did on VHS Beyond, I did Fur Babies, which was ridiculous. And on that was modern, so we used some camcorders and some GoPros. But again, just trying to be like authentic with it in the sense that if you're going to do found footage, it's all like you do it for real. You know, you don't try to mimic anything. You just go straight to the source, which is you use an old shitty camera. And just go for it, you know. But they were really fun. I didn't think I would be into found footage, and you know, I don't really watch those movies or anything along those lines. But to do it in real life was I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. Very different than all the other projects, you know.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, I was assuming that you guys used real cameras. But you know, we were talking earlier about the producers saying, "Oh, I don't know about this or I don't know about that," and I thought, "Oh, maybe they were forced to use like an Alexa Mini and then fake it later." But
no, the producers are bold on those movies. Yeah, one of them said VHS movies are "fuck you" movies. Was the way he put it, which I love.
That's great.
No, they're ballsy. Those guys are ballsy because they started the first ones that they made. They were like buddies that got together and just made them by themselves, you know, like, so they come from, they're kind of, this might sound like an eye roll, but like they're kind of punk rock in a sense of like, they come from a basement, if you will. Cool. They've leveled up to having like a bigger distributor and whatever else, but ultimately they're these movies that like everybody they honestly, I think part of the reason why they can get some pretty big horror directors on is because you kind of get a little bit of a blank check. Not financially, of course. Those movies are very low budget. Honestly, they really don't have much resources. But you get a blank check creatively. It's sort of like, go do what you want. And that's like the draw, which is what was fun for me too, because we got to kind of run the asylum a little bit in a way. And it was scary at times because especially on 85, like it was very nerve wracking where, I mean, we killed a couple of those old cameras, you know, they just died in the middle of filming. But luckily we put ourselves in a position where we had a few backup bodies. So you just quickly, you know, went and grabbed another one and just started filming again. It was crazy, but really fun.
Wow.
Really fun. Yeah.
So Bandit and London Calling, same director, right?
Yep. And I did the Uncharted like fan film with him with Nathan Fillion. That's the same director too. Yeah.
So London Calling feels like an even more bold rendition of your style than Bandit, which I just watched again last night. What was that conversation like with the director as far as where you were going to push things visually?
Yeah. Alan and I are very good friends, and we're very much on the same page a lot of the time in terms of like, we just love movies with a capital M. Like if Descendants, the more like artistic side, I would say London Calling is definitely the more like, just like we love movies, you know? So we talked a lot about like Tony Scott. We talked a lot about big time Michael Bay 90 movies, all that kind of stuff, where everything is just like, it's just all about making it look like good and pretty and like movie, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, that's the MO the whole time in a sense. I also love Dan Mindell's work as a cinematographer. He's like one of my absolute favorites. He's from the school of Tony Scott. He started under him, and you know, he was like a first AC on a bunch of Tony's movies, and then eventually went up and started shooting. Like his work in Mission Impossible 3 is like so beautiful. 2009 Star Trek. Like talk about Dan Mindell's work, use of color, use of anamorphic, use of Steadicam. He's one of those cinematographers. I have a few of them where I watch their movies and I'm like, not that I feel me. I guess so. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm like, that's what I love, you know, like, so he does that, and London Calling was definitely that. You know, again, anamorphic, strong color. We had like a really vibrant LUT that I built, and then a lot of color on set, a lot of tungsten, which was cool in terms of like I barely use any HMIs. It was all like during the day. It was T12s, a lot of mole beams with haze, and a lot of maxi baroots, and you know, just pushing the color temperature in camera to just shift everything warm. All that kind of stuff. And the MO is just sort of like go for broke, and that's fun because the movies that Alan and I make are like kind of popcorny, you know, type movies. And Bandit definitely had more the like true story, gritty bank robber thing going. I actually think it's got almost more in relationship to Descendant in a way, but that's me utilizing like dirty greens and things being like a little like having that texture, which I frankly love. But whereas London Calling is like it's a popcorn film,
which is not bad at all. Making
it's
popcorn films.
escapism. It's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Which we're aware of. Like tonally, the movie's just really it's fun and funny. But the reason why I think London Calling works, I really like it, is that it has a heart. Like it's not to sound cheesy, but like it does. Like the movie lands emotionally, and there's some great action in it, and like it's a fun movie. It's a good time.
What genres that you haven't explored would you like to jump in? Is there anything that you will like? My next movie, I will love to make a musical or a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, no. I mean, all everything. Like, I've done horror, done action, drama, all that stuff, noir, found footage, all that. Lots of commercials of different styles and music videos, but. No, musical would be fun. My heart's not in musicals for certain, but I love theatrical sort of style. I don't know if you guys have seen Anna Karenina, shot by Seamus McGarvey.
Mm-hmm.
That film's really beautiful. It's not a musical, but the way that they sort of bring in like a theatrical aesthetic into it, I love that kind of stuff. Sort of justifying again that color and that hard light in a more extreme way. I think that would be. I like flourish in that in a really great way. Obviously, everyone wants to do a Western. I would kill to do a Western. I think the reality of making a Western probably sucks. Like you're out in the desert and everything. I think that probably is rough. But I rough it out. Like I'm down. But just got to say it. Like that's real. Love that. And then, sci-fi for sure. Although it's getting harder and harder to make that a little unique because so one of my first movies that in terms of cinematography, like identified and fell in love with was 1979 Alien, right? Which I can never remember that cinematographer's name. He only did a few movies. I think she turned down Blade Runner, which is crazy.
Huh.
He went on to do like a lot of commercials and that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, he passed early. He passed pretty young. He's in my opinion, he's like one of the great what if cinematography questions. If he had shot Blade Runner and had continued, like what would have happened there? His work in Alien is absolutely gorgeous, and I mention it. I think it's one of the best shot films ever. Like I feel very comfortable stating that. It's so ahead of its time in terms of how source driven we are now. That whole ending, it's just the sirens, it's the flamethrower, it's the sources coming from the ship. How bold that was, and sort of I think ahead of its time. Although the whole 70s, like let's be real, we're all still mimicking what they were doing back then, basically.
Same,
but
excuse me, Alex. Same with Blade Runner. I mean,
yeah.
Blade Runner, the original.
Oh,
one,
1000%.
it's
Yeah,
just
there's a before and after.
I can't imagine any other DP who could make that better. It's still a reference for many of us, right?
Oh, for all of us, yeah. And again, a great film with a lot of theatrical, sort of expressionistic, bold, stuff going on. No, Blade Runner that's the touchstone in like modern filmmaking, right? Like it's there's no doubt. But I mention Alien with sci-fi because I think what I identified when I was younger that like blew me away was that it is. I love how much that film, cinematography wise, is based around the production design and the space itself and the lighting built into the set. So to work on like something like Alien Romulus, that Gallo and those guys worked on, that's a really great example of like the fun of working on that and working on the design of the ship with the people and thinking about the lighting and how you're going to do that, how you're going to justify like moving light is nothing. I mean, in 1917, Deacons, right? When that flare went up and all those shadows moved, I almost like screamed in the theater. Like I was like, this is the best thing ever. It's like a drug to me in a way. So, and they do it in Alien Romulus when the ship goes by and the lights panning through, like that design and working with all those different departments and building that up and trying to create that world, but in an interior sense. that has like, you know, extreme looks in it. I think that's kind of I think that's still my dream. It's just that now everybody, you know, it's kind of, it's gonna be hard to make that special, I think, in a certain way, because there's so much of it, so much movies in space in a spaceship with all this lighting built into the wall. No, you know, it's like how to do that different. That sounds like, I think, the biggest challenge of all, to not just make it like we're just doing Alien again, you know. I think 22-year-old me thought that was like the end all be all, and now I'm kind of like, how do you do that different, you know? Just all LED ribbon and all, like, it's like, you know, it's been done a lot.
Maybe it's more colorful.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, Alien Romulus is plenty colorful.
Yeah.
That whole red scene. His work is so beautiful. I think he's another great. There's so many great cinematographers out there, and his work is really good. As well.
How did the Uncharted thing come about? Because it's a fan film, right? But it's so like polished and like it's a real thing.
Yeah, it's cool. Everybody loves that. I still, to this day, I had a PA 2 months ago come up to me. This happens all the time. The director and I talk about this. It's really fun and funny and sweet. It's really nice. But like, his PA came up to me and he's like, I looked at your website and you shot the Uncharted fan film. Oh my God. Like, you know, he's like freaking out. And that we did that years ago, but that happens a few times a year, frankly, which is really cool. And look, it was so low budget. Like it was really tiny. But I think that's what Alan and I specialize in. Like Bandit and London Calling are way lower budget than people think that they are. We punch above our weight big time, kind of make like the impossible possible is kind of our thing. I think that we do well. But I just moved to Los Angeles, and Alan kind of had a heartbreaking situation where he was making a movie and it died last minute. I really respect this about Alan. He put his money where his mouth was. He got paid some money for getting this movie off the ground and almost getting it to cameras, like very nearly. He was like, shit, I don't have a movie now, but you know, I know Nathan Fillion. Like, I'm just going to make a short, you know, a sort of a fan film. The fan films are doing well these days. That's from, you know, it was like the Power Rangers one. There was the, I can't remember, but there was a bunch of like YouTube based fan films that kind of like blew up. And so Alan put his money where his mouth was. And he had a cinematographer at the time that they had been working together a bunch, but that cinematographer said, I'm going to go direct my first film. That's what I want to direct features. So he went off to do that. And Alan called me up saying, I already have my dates. I already have my actor. He was introduced to me by a producer friend. We didn't know one another. But Alan called me up and said, hey, I'm doing this short film. It's got no money in it. I hear you live in LA. Do you want to shoot it? I can't tell you what it is because it's a secret fan film, but it's based on a video game and Nathan Fillion's in it. And I immediately was like, oh, it's Uncharted. I'm a massive video game nerd. Like, I was like, I know what you're like. I'm one of you, you know, kind of thing. And he was like, okay, cool. Like, great. Like, we kind of immediate friends sort of in that way. We just went to town and worked our butts off. And then that fortunately led to Bandit a couple of years later. And that led to London Calling. And now we have another, you know, I think there's going to be another movie soon. I think Alan and I will be making movies for a long time. It's always really hard work with him because he really, like, he demands a lot. We do like 50 to 70 setups a day. No one ever believes me when I say that. But ask the crews, because they didn't believe. On London Calling, we were in South Africa, and everyone was like, yeah, you guys are talking a big game. And at the end of day one, everyone was like, oh, what the hell happened? You know, I was like, strap in. Like,
told you.
Yeah. And so that's hard for me as a cinematographer, because definitely, you know, the quality can drop sometimes in terms of, you know, I got to cross shoot a lot. I have to do 2-3 cameras all the time. I have to sprint, right? And how do I light that well? How do I make that look good? And so Bandit and London Calling are both, and the Uncharted film are examples of like a lot less resources than you think, sprinting, and I'm trying my damnedest to still make it look good and not just spray and pray. You know, which it has its ups and downs at times. But it's cool. People really like Uncharted, which is awesome because it was really fun to make, and yeah, it's good.
Do you guys have
Awesome.
all those 70 shots listed, or you play by ear? What's the working relationship with the director?
Uh, uh, I'll just be totally honest in that I give him shit all the time. He's Alan's one of my best friends, and we're like brothers. But every movie, every project, I'm like, can you please get me a shot list earlier? And a lot of the time, I get it that morning. Um, and it's very stressful. No, but we definitely go through the big sequences and meet up and shot list those. But I think this is part of the job too. Every director is different in that, like, you have to support their process, right? Descendant, with Peter Salella, who's a first-time director, which is it's such a great first film. Like, Peter's got the stuff. He's just, you could, if you watch it, it's got like a confidence to it. It's really great. Him and I prepared like psychos. I think that also came from, I like to do that, but it also, it is a first-time director, sort of like he's like really making sure everything is ready to go, which is strongly preferred by me as well. Whereas I think I've proven to Alan that I can pull it off, so he can, I think he needs to see it. I think he needs to be there. I think he needs to be in the space. So a part of my job, and I do this with any director, is like sort of analyze what their needs are and then adjust resources and everything to that. I work with a director who's, we do a lot of music videos together, and he's a photographer. So I think of building the set in a way almost like it is for a photographer, where I try to like, I don't build it 360, but I try to make it so that if he sees things, he can like adjust accordingly. And I think Alan's kind of a similar way. But we do, during scouting and everything, Alan and I get very, this is the spot, these are the directions we're looking. I'm pretty bullish about time. I'm very big on time of day and sun direction and all that stuff. And I'll be very like, please, like, this is going to look like shit. We're on on this side, it's all frontal, blah, blah, blah. And he'll trust me on that. But still, on the day, there's new stuff all the time. It's intense, but it's very exciting and it's very fun. And I think that energy comes through the movies too. You do feel, again, while there are times where I want the quality to be, maybe a little bit higher, it is, I think you do feel an energy in a way that comes through for audiences, which I enjoy watching in movies as well. Mm-hmm. That comes back to that, like, kind of that Tony Scott stuff. Like, it's you can just feel it's radiating. There's I wouldn't call it. There's not necessarily a patience there.
Mm-hmm.
With that style of work and overseeing that much and like you said, sprinting for that long, are you operating on these movies as well, or are you entrusting that to other operators?
Yeah, it depends. Alan's movies, that's a good example. Same thing with Noah's Ark, where I had three cameras throughout. Those types of movies, I like to have an operator because I need to almost be more managerial. I need to be working closely with the AD. I need to be working closely with the gaffer. I'm 5 setups ahead at all times. I'm like keeping the ship going, I need to be in 5 places at once, kind of thing. With that said, I'll grab the camera all the time and operate and do things when maybe someone can't nail a shot or it's faster for me to do it or whatever it may be. Handheld, I'll grab it a lot of the time. Descendant was a small enough movie, single camera, very low budget, that I'm operating on. And I think that's what depends. Like, if I'm going to have multiple cameras and several units and big toys and lots of Steadicam, Technocrane, and all type of stuff, I'm going to push to have operators because I'm going to conduct and keep everything really moving, and really can focus more on the lighting in a way. I think I'm more precious about lighting than composition because that gets so adjusted by blocking and the actors and the director is such a play in that, whereas I really want to make sure that the lighting and the color is really special. A movie like Descendant is small enough. We're in bedrooms and little, spaces that, and just frankly, budgetary wise, it's like it just makes more sense for me to just be there, keep the crew small, but I love having operators. I just think it depends. And I also make it always very clear that I will, that Nico thing, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to knock you off and I'm going to hop on. Frankly, a lot of time they can do it better than me, but sometimes it's purely an intimacy thing as well, where it's sort of like, I need to be what I call like in the pocket, meaning I've had times where I kind of let an operator go and things start, I'm doing something else. I'm talking with an AD, I'm talking with a gaffer, whatever, or key grip, whatever it may be. And I realize that I'm not in the pocket, meaning the decision-making zone of like, no, actually they're going to move the marks and cheat the actor over here and move this thing and the camera's going to come around this way. And I'll walk in and see that happening and it's steering off in another direction where I'm like, no. I do not want to look at that wall more. I do not want to be over there. You guys need to actually, I see what you're doing, but we're kind of going off the rails a little bit here. So that's my only thing with operating is sort of, I love having an operator, but I sometimes have to keep an eye on sort of maybe setup wise in the physical where things are heading, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, yeah. The relation to the frame and lighting is everything. Absolutely.
Exactly. And though a lot of the time, I love operators, some of them are my best friends, but a lot of the time they will push it in a direction that can really hurt that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's been times I agree with them. I've had this disagreement several times where an operator will start to be framing something up and that backlight will just be directly in frame, or that flag will be directly in frame. And, the key gripper gaffer gets annoyed because, I don't want to move, and the operator's going, that's got to move, whatever else. That's up to me. That's my job. I'm the cinematographer. Like, I'll make that call over what, and it's funny, you watch them kind of like bicker over it. And to me, it's very clear when that's appropriate or when that's not. Because there are times I'll turn to my gaffer or key grip and be like, sorry, like, I agree with him. Like, that's gotta, too bad. Like, that has to go away. This is the geography. This is the physical space. This is what makes sense, like, around us right now. Like, what's physically in our way. What I want to show of this world. Or there are times where I watch the operator start to say that, and I'm like, no. You're totally off. That light needs to be there. You need to adjust over this way. The actor needs to go. You know what I mean? Like, so I find that to be a very important job and, like, in the nitty gritty. And frankly, like, you usually end up like someone gets annoyed. They want it to be this way. They want it to be that way. But again, that's the job. That's the whole thing. I'm sort of foreseeing that and trying to guide everybody in the right direction. Hey man, I'll be totally honest with you. I've had times where then you get into take one and you watch it play out and you sit there and while you're watching the first take, you're going, I was wrong. Like, shit. No. That should totally be this way. Like, so that is, you're working with each other and you have to be humble and you have to be, sort of all collaborating and communicating in a way, look, frankly, if you have time, you have stand-ins and you have rehearsals and like the way we should be making movies, frankly, this stuff is way less of a problem. The sprinting that we're doing these days, the time pressure that we're under, the day counts getting slashed, the budget's getting slashed, like the crew, like it's so brutal that these things become a larger issue, So you have to have that foresight, I think, in a way.
Alex, one question that we keep asking in this podcast, the only question that we always ask is, what will be your if you have to shoot with one lens for the rest of your life, what that lens will be? And it's just one lens, not a set. It's just one.
Yeah. What sensor? What format? What am I doing?
Yeah. Whatever you choose.
You don't know.
Whatever you choose.
Got
it
it
has to be just one lens.
So the lens has a lot of coverage, but I can choose. Exactly. Yeah. I feel that. Probably 35. Maybe like, I was gonna say 27, 28. Definitely not a 50. I know a lot of people choose that, but that's too long of a lens for me. Probably a 35. That's what.
And what kind of series character would you go? Are you like, would you lean cleaner? Would you lean more towards like a Lomo spherical? Would you be like a super speed?
Ooh, I love Lomo sphericals. Great lens. Great.
I could see it in your eye.
Yeah. I I would lean, to answer your question quickly. I would lean more vintage with more character for sure. My biggest problem though, that again, I don't want to be fighting my tools in a sense that like I see a lot of lenses get chosen. So I'm a total lens nerd. I've got a tattoo, the lens right here, and I'm such a nerd about it. I have a lot of DP friends call me like lens guru or whatever because like I test all the time, and I just like I have like a bit of an encyclopedia in my brain about it. But what I don't understand is that like I hate veiling glare. I hate when my contrast gets adjusted. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it'd basically be that like there's a light off to the side, or it could be literally the sun bouncing off of a car and coming in, and it doesn't look like a normal flare, but it sort of just hits the coating and skips around inside, and your blacks raise and your contrast lowers. And it causes you to, you either live with it and then your movie is inconsistent in color, you're like trying to chase that contrast, or you have to be really careful with like edge lights and backlights and all that kind of stuff. I love, like, to me, the whole thing is backlight and sort of, edging things out and creating shapes with that. So for me, while I love older lenses, there's a lot that people use, I won't name names, that people I see use over and over again, and I'm very confused because I think that they limit you too much in that regard. So yes, I love vintage lenses, but there's a very fine line, and also, by the way, there's a lot of them, like we all are using photo lenses now that are really, really sharp lenses. Like my dad's a photographer, like I grew up in the photography world, like whatever. These lenses are sharp. Even if they're from the 80s, 70s, like those are sharp. They were made to be great, sharp lenses. So to me, they really do not look anywhere near, like, I think you have to go so much more aggressive, but then that brings us back to the issue of the veiling glare. So like what I shot Bandit and Descendant on are both the Canon rangefinder 1960s lenses. To me, those are arguably some of the best spherical lenses ever made, because by the way, they're single coat. There's other very popular single coat lenses. Again, I'm going to try not to be negative and name any names, but that are very bad in this regard, and I don't know why they're used. But the rangefinders, to me, like on Bandit, they were what's dubbed the Type SKs, made by Lensworks Rentals. And on Descendant, I used the TLS Old Fast Glass, took those and made them, and they're called TLS Canon rangefinder. They're all from the same donor glass. They're all from Canon made in the 60s rangefinder, single coated lenses. They're very warm. The flare is like super orange and beautiful. They get very soft, wide open, like actually soft. This whole like I want it to look like film thing. A lot of these lenses don't. Like when you have a digital sensor, you do the whole thing. They frankly still look very sharp. And I'm not talking about bokeh. I'm not talking about fall off. I'm not talking about halation or any of that type of stuff. I'm talking like the literal resolving fidelity that you get. Is this lens actually soft? None of them are soft, of course. If they're soft, you're not going to shoot with them because that's not in focus. But you know what I'm saying, where it has that like patina to it in a way, that glow, that does the skin, do you see the pores, or does this thing start to push almost like what I call like porcelain, where like the fidelity starts to like actually drop down. So for me, those lenses actually achieve that. And I love a lens that I can use in two different ways. And I think the rangefinders do that really, really well, meaning like a bunch of the 35 is like a T1.6. You go to 1.6, that lens, like the halation pops, it gets very porcelain, it gets very like low resolution, low fidelity. It's a soft lens. One would argue, if you had like Old Fast Glass's donor set is amazing. Like the way Mark put that set together, it's gorgeous. You go to a 2.5, 2.8, it cleans up a lot. And so and I did that in Descendant as well, is sort of, I'm moving that lens around for different looks in the movie. I don't need to swap them out. I don't need to put filters on, whatever. I can do it all via the stop. And then with these cameras nowadays, if it's the Venice with the internal NDs popping around, if it's, adjusting ISO, whatever, which gets into texture and dynamic range and all that kind of stuff, I'm adjusting the look of that lens. And I love that. I find that really fun. With that said, one of my upcoming projects is almost definitely master primes. because that's appropriate for that project. You know, I want it to be super clean. I don't want any of that stuff. You know. So anyway, sorry, I could talk about lenses for so long.
Dude,
It's great. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
So, but you never said what lens will be a 35 millimeter of those Canon lenses.
Yeah. That's what I would pick. That's what I would pick. I think those are that's probably what I would pick. But also, I don't know, man. Ooh, you know what's one of the best lenses ever made? So primo anamorphic Panavision lenses. They're gigantic. They're like the size of zooms.
Agree.
Nobody shoots on them.
But
those are some of the best lenses. Yeah.
The 50 millimeter. It's the primo anamorphic close focus specifically.
Yeah.
Are amazing.
Oh, of course.
Amazing lenses. Yeah.
Some of the best lenses ever made, which brings me back to Dan Mandel, I was talking about a bunch before. He shoots on those a bunch, and you know, because he's on Leaper heads and all that. By the way, the young cinematographers, do not put a primo on a Steadicam and make your Steadicam operator do that. I have a lot of good friends who've been put through that. Don't do that to them. It's not nice, but
you'll be hated.
Nice
Yeah.
It's not nice to do.
Or give that 50 millimeters handheld to your camera operator. Okay, just run with this.
Yeah. Exactly.
But brilliant.
Exactly. Trust me, I've done extensive tests with E series, T series primos. They look pretty darn similar, you know, all things considered. However, those primo anamorphics, I still haven't shot a project with them. I'm dying to. There is that logistic thing of like they're fucking huge and heavy, and that's a whole thing. But I think those are arguably some of the best lenses ever made. I also think it's because they're so big and heavy.
Yes.
You know, you get smaller. It's physics.
Yep.
It's physics. You know, like that front element being that big is a bit like I don't like how anamorphic gets cut off in terms of I like my vertical bokeh to be like sort of undisturbed across the frame, and so much of that cutoff that you're getting and that shape that you're getting is that front, and I love that. It just I'll shoot a movie on it, you know, with them one day.
I haven't used them as a DP. I worked a lot with them when I was an AC, and I pull focus a lot with those lenses. I haven't find the project for those lenses because the kind of movies that I'm shooting lately are mostly action films, and the camera moves fast, and it's the and those are not comfortable lenses for that kind of movies. I agree, they're brilliant, they're pretty, very pretty. Probably my favorite anamorphics if I have to choose one, but I don't know how to fit them in one of my movies.
No, I'm the same way, and I actually, sadly enough, I had them. This is a devastating story, but I had them on a movie. They literally got shipped out. They were at the rental house, and the producer pulled a fast one and bailed. And so we ended up with master anamorphics last minute. I almost dropped out because literally, like, they changed the camera package on me the day before prep, and screwed over Panavision, and they had already shipped it. It was brutal. Wow. It was like, I was like, I called my wife's a filmmaker. I called her up and was like, I think I'm going to walk. And she was like, relax, take a deep breath, you know, like, and I didn't, and I shot the movie and it was what it was, but that was awful. But I almost shot on it, and it would have been an appropriate movie. It was very like almost all on dolly, very, not a lot of coverage, sort of very, simple film. So that's sad. I feel like I have unfinished business with them in a way. Yeah.
So close. You do a lot of commercials too, though, right?
I do. Fortunately, you know, they keep the lights on, and they also. It's nice now too because I can be a little more selective with the movies. Shot a lot of movies and shot a lot of, just ones to keep the resume going, keep piling up, and like making sure you got to climb the budget ladder, you got to climb the experience ladder, right? Like get stuff on your CV. And now the commercials kind of allow me to be a little more selective. Plus, they're great too because I get to try different things. What's awesome about commercials is over the years you get to shoot with drones and arm cars and underwater and slow-mo and these big light setups, and it's cool because it puts you, for me, it's all about the movies, and I get the experience so that when I get to those experiences on movies, maybe I haven't done it in a movie, but maybe I did in a commercial, and I now know all the maybe the little things to look out for, and I like that about commercials. I also get to test, like I'm doing a commercial next week, trying new lenses, trying new lights that just came out, because the gaffer just called me up and he was like, hey, what do you think we can bring these on? And I was like, cool, haven't worked with those yet. And now I get to experience those, which is cool.
The lighting world has shifted quite a bit. We talk to lenses a lot, but I think prior to starting the show, it's like you got these Nanlux and Godox and these other companies that are putting out insane, single point LED sources like 5,000 bicolor and stuff that's competing with some of the mid-tier HMIs that we would carry.
But those,
of course,
we are all shifting towards LEDs because they're faster, because we can control them from a phone or from a board. There's nothing compared to a T20 through a window. There's nothing compared to an M18 through a window. It's just not the same light. The quality of light drops massively when you go LED. And but it's a sign of times. You have to be able to control everything. It feels like there's no more time.
Yeah, it's expected now.
Yeah, there's if a producer sees a guy on a ladder putting a gel, it's gonna have a scissor, but to me that's the right way of lighting. But the budgets and the custom, I guess, not everybody got accustomed to controlling everything remotely. But
it's just time and money, right? Like it's like, which it does at times. I'm very grateful for that. I feel very spoiled to have kind of like that customization and everything, but I do agree. And look, I haven't done extensive testing with the Aperture, the Blair engine, and all that. I've seen all the videos. I'm always like very up to date on sort of taking all that stuff in. The stuff that I saw online looked quite promising. I just have to do it myself to really know. Like I mentioned earlier, like I still use a lot of tungsten. I light a lot with Lecos still, like Source 4 theatrical. You can buy them online for a couple $100. Lecos are like my favorite because again, I like a beam. You can bounce it. You could hard light. You can have a million of them on the truck, and they're tungsten and they look beautiful. And you haze it up and like you're good to go. And they're super cheap. So I utilize a lot of that type of stuff. With that said, yeah, the LEDs are great and all, but my biggest thing with the LEDs personally is matching color. It's something that has really driven me nuts, and I'm still on the hunt to figure out a solution. And let's be realistic about it too, because what ends up happening, right, is that I have either a vendor or almost always like a gaffer who owns certain things. So I can't just go and get exactly what I want on that lighting front. I have to sort of take on what they have or that vendor has or what that budget can afford. So meaning I walk into a space and like what makes the most sense for the crew size and the time and the budget and whatever else is like, all right, a tube over there, this window light coming from over there, this thing over here. If I'm playing a lot with color like I do, getting those to match, even when I have camera tests, even when I get the crew to sit there and get all their, everything set up correctly and I'm matching gels and doing all sorts of things or whatever else, X and Y coordinates, all that stuff, I sit in color, still doesn't match. I'm sitting in color and I'm pulling my hair out to get everything to be the same. So really the solution is to go simpler and to like use less and to kind of align things in a way where you're, because one could even say, use the same manufacturer, but between units, they change. Trust me, like this head is not the same as this head, right? That
has been the case forever. I mean, when we were using only tungsten or only HMI, this head has the lamp has 200 hours. This one has 50, not the same color at all. So
totally, but when I'm pushing a really harsh like green or cyan or red or something, it's one thing in like degrees of Kelvin, right? It's a whole other when we're in these other extreme colors. So I find that to be really difficult and frustrating, and I'm still navigating that, and it feels like it'll probably be a forever quest of trying to like get that to be the same, but it's something on my next movie I'm going to be even more aggressive about in prep of sort of technically trying to find ourselves in a position to get colors to try to be as aligned as possible, being a little more strict about what we should or shouldn't be doing. However, what makes that difficult is that it does start to clash a little bit with that time and that logistic and that adjustability. Like that does conflict with that in a certain way. So I find that to be really hard. With that said, I do feel I think we're pretty spoiled, truthfully.
Something that I used to do in many years ago, not anymore since we're using more LEDs, but I remember before the movie started, just putting all the lights lined up, and go one by one. It's like, okay, this needs a quarter of green, this needs a quarter of magenta, and just adjust all of them. Normally by the fourth week, it was all gone. We have to do it all over again.
No,
totally. That's what I'm saying. Like I've been sort of amassing techniques like that and trying to find. Again, I sneak a camera test in. Sometimes budgetarily, the producers do give me 1 to 2 days to do sort of hair and makeup tests or whatever, and I'm sneaking all that stuff in. Sometimes I don't have that in the budget, so I pull some favors, and at the camera prep we bring some lights over and we try. And usually I have to do that for effects too, where like the script calls for London Calling. There's this shootout scene where we do these like flashes of light. So we with slow mo. So I had to test the LEDs and get the like, is it the paparazzi effect? Is it the firework effect? Like what's the thing that like, and what color temperature, and can we get away with this at 120? You know what I mean? Like that. I'm testing that kind of stuff while also trying to match color stuff. Yes, doing the lineup for sure. I still feel far away from it though. What made me feel better was that on the Team Deacons podcast, Greg Fraser came on with the makeup artist of Dune and some other stuff that they've worked on together, and the whole conversation was about how impossible it is to get color to match, because they were talking about like skin tones and all that for the makeup tests that they do, and all of them were saying how impossible it is. So that made me feel a little bit better that even at that level, they still struggle with it.
Have you ever find that that color difference it's impossible to match in post when you do the color grading? Like
can be if things are really like, obviously if they're really separate. If it's like a set of windows, easy peasy. If it's half of this guy's face and an edge and coming over to here and his hands get in the way, and you can get within, again, something like reasonable, or like the producers will go oh, it's fine, no one's gonna notice that, but like
I noticed
that's always the problem. Exactly. Which again gets into this question of like, what are we, what is our quality, what is our standard, if you will, and I'm trying to put us in a position where we don't need to deal with that stuff. My way bigger issues are sort of pipelining colorist, skill and all that kind of stuff. But the matching, it's hard. It's hard. But I think I'm getting better with it every film in terms of laying down some ground rules in a way, like some of them being like, we only use those lights that you have on your truck, they only get used for this. Is sometimes a rule I'll make in a way. So again, trying to like compartmentalize certain things. So yeah.
Cool. Just to end, what would you advise to the young yourself, knowing what you know now? You have to start over again.
Younger self, it would be find a side hustle that will help you financially get through the difficult times in the film industry. And when work is slow, or when there's all sorts of things going on, I think it's something I try to talk about with younger people often. Is like, now I'm 38 and like got it figured out and everything, but like it I think through my 20s and my early 30s, I just was so focused on cinematography, and that was it. And it's sort of very, very single-minded in that way. And this industry is difficult, and it has a lot of highs and lows. And I would say it sounds really boring in your 20s, but like focus on if you put yourself in a good financial position, that means savings, that means side hustles, that means taking good care of yourself and being like financially literate. What's great about it is that it does put you in a position where you can say yes to that lower budget movie, because you can, as opposed to, oh my God, I have to go do this thing because I need to make this money or whatever. I'm not saying you're going to go be rich or whatever else, but there is a difference between, we're creatives. Our minds don't work that way. Some do. I have some DP friends who are really smart business guys and like own all these cameras and are like, really, really smart with that. That's not necessarily my forte. And I had to learn that, and it was all good. But I do think that if I could go back to 25-year-old me, I could be smarter about it, and that puts you in a better position later. So I think, yes, we can read all the ASC magazines and listen to the audio commentaries and look at the lighting diagrams and shoot, do all of that. But also try to put yourself in a good position so that you're set up in a good way, so that, when you get into the position where you are sort of torn about maybe a really dumb commercial that pays well or brilliant script, can you be in that position so you can go shoot that brilliant script? If you have kids, if you have a family, if you set yourself up in a good way, that becomes an easier choice, and that could be a better creative life for you. Let alone financial and all that other kind of stuff. So I think that's something that we don't talk about enough, and something that I try to preach a bit is sort of, again, that financial literacy, and it's something that no one really addresses in this industry. And I think it's becoming even more important now with a lot of the uncertainty and the ups and downs that we face.
That's a very, very smart advice, dude. Very smart.
Very well put. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're right. It's not mentioned enough.
Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
not. We talk about a lot of important things, which is great, but I think that's one that we should talk about more.
Sustainability. Yeah. We want to be able to do this for a long time.
Well, yeah, because look, frankly, what's happening and what will always happen, I'm not going to be naive, but you just have people who are independently wealthy or come from money essentially can do it. But what about the rest of us? And if you want to be able to do that, you're going to need to work at it. It's not going to be handed to you. So I think if we also want to watch movies from normal people, we need to do something about it.
Yeah, and also from a creative point of view, if you are independent enough to choose the great script with no money over the bad script with money, that gives you, such an advantage from any other guy on the job, because you're able to choose the good scripts, not just the money. And
Correct.
we all know that chasing the money, it's fantastic, but maybe not be the best artistically. So
yeah,
you want to tell good
and just
stories.
being in the position to choose, right?
Exactly.
I think that's it.
Exactly.
That's the key. So yeah.
Love it. Well, Alex, thank you so much, man. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Great talk.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.